is of the skyline of Manila from the airplane. So as I was touchdowning, there were like these puffy, beautiful cotton candy clouds, and we were going forcefully through them. I don't know if there was like lightning, but I felt like we were like really rushing through them, and I felt a lot of turbulence. This was my first time coming back after the pandemic. I've been to the Philippines, mostly staying in Quezon City on and off since like 2010, or but my family moved. Oh, so my family moved from Japan. I was born in Okinawa, Japan. My dad was in the military, in the Navy, and we moved to California when I was 3 years old. But we, across my childhood, my teenage years, later adult years, I would come to Manila to visit my Auntie Bridget, and my Lolo and Lola, they live in Quezon City and Marikina City. And there's my Auntie Mary here as well. So yeah, so this is my first time staying here for a long period of time, and this is my first time really practicing my Tagalog. I learned it at the university, and tried to, but so I'm not speaking Tagalog, but I was first time integrating and meeting folks, and also navigating the university and academic spaces here. So that's the first photo. The second photo is of butterflies. I think this is like a migratory photo. It's not taken in the Philippines. I think it's taken in Mexico. But across my time in the Philippines, I keep seeing symbols of butterflies. And when I first arrived here, my family and I had a ceremony for my Lolo and Lola. So my Lolo had passed away during COVID in April 2021. And 7 months later, my Lola passed away. And so we weren't able to like give them a proper ceremony, but once I landed, coincidentally, the family was able to come together because of, lifting of restrictions. And we had a proper ceremony at St. Peter's Parish on Commonwealth. So I always see these symbols of the butterflies, and they remind me of my grandparents. Even though I wasn't able to see them, I know that they're guiding me through my time. And then the last scene is just some mountains in Palawan, because I just went to Palawan and I like this photo. So there are 3 people I really have to thank for my time here. The first person is my aunt, who is like, sorry, again, this is like going to be very informative. Hopefully more of like a heart presentation than like a lecture. So the first person I want to thank is my aunt, who guided me and was like my mother here, who helped me find an apartment. Like my cousin and her helped me find an apartment and integrate. And we also went on adventures. So she was, she's right there. So she's a university researcher at UP Law Center. She just retired. So we were able to go on some adventures when she retired, and I got to like spend more time with her. The second person I want to thank is my Fulbright affiliate, so Dr. Arwin Tan. So again, like honestly, I wouldn't be here without the letter of support that you wrote for me when I was applying for the Fulbright. So maraming salamat, Dr. Arwin. Thank you for being a guide. And I think you're very much a rarity, because you were always there for me. So sometimes when you have a mentor, they can go both ways, right? Like you can always see them, or maybe you don't see the mentor as much, but you're always there for me whenever to talk about the research and if I was hitting dead ends. So you really have made this chapter what it is, and I'm so excited to share it with everybody. And it was really a collaborative effort between you and me. So thank you so much. And lastly, I want to thank Dr. Tadiar, who is, she's not affiliated really with UP, but she's from La Union and is a doctor, was a women's rights doctor. And I visited La Union twice during my time here. So the first time was at the Puon Institute, which was in January. And that was with, it was a workshop. It was the first time the workshop was happening at La Union, and it was the Tadiar family. Sir Fred Tadiar was like a pretty well-known lawyer, also a professor at the UP College of Law. So the family has a library in La Union, and they had this workshop with a bunch of artists, scholars, academics. So they accepted my application. So I got to do that and meet a lot of really fantastic people. And then they also had a residency program, a writers in residency program. And I, aside from my academic research, I wanted to really learn more about the Ilocano side of my family. So I have family that's from Ilocos Norte. So up a ways from La Union, but you know, like Doctora is very like very proud to be Ilocana. So I also was able to learn more about the Ilocano cultural side of my heritage and upbringing. So I'm very thankful for her. Okay. And I also just want to thank the UP College of Music for welcoming me here. There was like an endless supply of merienda and baon and all the snacks. So I was always well fed. And here's me and Dale ordering some halo-halo. So, you know, when you're a researcher and you're a writer, it's a very lonely life. You don't really get to see people, and you're kind of just all in your head all the time. So I was really happy to always have chats with folks like Dale, Ate Jan, Andrew, and of course the amazing librarians, Ate Jos, and we always talked about the cats. She has like an account, a Facebook account with all the cats of UP Diliman. So we talked. And Ate Shea is the head librarian of the UP College of Music. So this was us. This was us at the Lights Parade. I'm sure many of you all were there. So that was really fun. I didn't stay the whole. It was getting a little late, but we were wearing all white. And then this, I also attended the fashion show with, or not the fashion show, the Christmas party, and then was anime themed. So yeah, I'm really thankful to the UP Ethnomusicology contingent for also being very supportive of my time here. And then, so I want to really, so those were my interlocutors on the academic side. And then friendships were also what really kept me going here, and especially meeting a lot of different artists. So I met tons of people from every kind of discipline. So from painters to weavers to dancers, like I met like a fire dancer who does like hula hoop stuff, you know, like so people that like weave banig, like my friend Ben, he's also a Fulbrighter right here. My friend Lyra, who is a painter, my friend Paolo, who's lecturing in the art department here. My friend Josh, who's a playwright. Here's Ate Ana. She was part of the library at La Union. And then some weavers. I met a lot of weavers like in Palawan. So yeah, I just met this really stunning cast of people during my time who, you know, and again, in academia, sometimes you don't really branch out and meet other folks outside the institution. So it was great to meet people who are also makers, creators, thinkers, and doing very extraordinary things with their talents. So I want to celebrate them. And then, like Doc Arwin was saying, I was in La Union for 3 weeks in May, and I was embarking on this family project of transcribing my grandfather's stories. He's from Ilocos Norte, was born in Vigan, but he was also a writer. So I've transcribed all the stories, and I'm in the process of putting that together with UP Blessings to create this book, just like a self-published book to distribute. Oh, I want to show, so hi Dale and Atishay. I just shouted you out on this slide. So just thank you for all your support, and thank you for welcoming me here. And yeah, I'm gonna cry, but so the La Union thing, that was another place. So part of my research, again, was really diving into the archives across Manila. There's so many treasures here, and it's a lot of people were warning me too beforehand, like, oh, be careful. It's really hard to like navigate the system. But actually, I had a really enjoyable time period. Like I really met a lot of great librarians, archivists who were also so generous, and always like if I had a question, they would always answer my questions and help me scan. So this was my little nook at the library. So I sat here 3 to 4 times a week and like was writing. And then eating my food, the baon and the merienda that was given to me. And then so I went to other libraries. So I went to the University of Santo Tomas, Ateneo de Manila University, their American Historical Collection. I went to the UP School of Information and Library Sciences. And then I also went to the National Library of the Philippines. So I would take the LRT 2 to the 1 and commute there. But I didn't want to take like taxi. So I tried to use public transportation. So yeah, so I visited all these archives, and hopefully my chapter is enriched because of all. And then so also aside from that, I tried to really learn more about crafts and textiles, and did a little bit more painting. So this photo is from La Union. So I learned more about Inabel patterns and textiles because my family is from Ilocos. So this is just like a side hobby and interest I'm getting more into. I was also learned how to weave in Palawan. So there is like this women-centered, organized workshop in Palawan, in Puerto Princesa, and they teach women how to weave and make sustainable products using like all eco-friendly materials. So like pineapple, banana leaves, cotton, and teaching them, and then also like having them sell their products. So I joined this like collective for a week to learn more. And and then also with the thinking, so I was when you're writing, you're kind of like all in your head and you're like, what is this? So I also tried to like paint. So I would try to work painting into my writing practice. So at 6 a.m. every day, I would wake up, I would go to bed at 9 p.m., wake up at 6. And I started painting scenes around Quezon City. So I would take photos, and then, so for example, this tricycle that I see every day, it has Gemini on it. And one thing I've learned about living in the Philippines too is that everybody really likes astrology here, or there's a lot of like astrology symbols everywhere. So I really wanted to highlight the Gemini tricycle. And then the patterns that I used in this piece are all patterns from my Lola's dusters. So one thing growing up, whenever I would visit the Philippines, my Lola would just be like, oh, here's a duster, like put this on, because you're sweaty from traveling and you want to like relax it. So part of like commemorating my family is also taking some of the patterns from the material. Like I kind of look like my Lola today because I am wearing this dress, but but I would like take some of the patterns and then kind of put them within scenes, like everyday scenes I would see in Quezon City. So that's like another project I was inspired to do while being here. Okay, so this is the academic work I've been working on. So I showed you the archives, and so I'll just talk briefly about what I was doing here and the future directions of the research. So the main focus of my research topic was on vaudeville performers, particularly women vaudeville performers during the American period, so from the 1900s to the 1940s. And today in scholarship, really like figures like Atang Galarama are very popular. She was a Zarzuela starlet who acted in many early silent films and also on the stage. She was a singer. She sung a lot of kundiman. And there is also this figure who I centered my research on, Maggie Calloway, who was born like maybe a few years later after Atang Galarama, but she was a jazz singer and introduced a lot of American jazz singing, dancing, also different kinds, even like European dance styles. So like the Spanish review, Scottish dances, and even the hula dance. So she was a very multi, I will say multi-genre figure. So she kinds of dance styles and executed them in her performances, but she was also a choreographer. So she was also training a lot of chorus girls to perform in these different ways. So presenting these very novel dance styles to Filipino audiences during the American period. So that's what I mean when I say transcultural. So different kinds of cultures are coming together, encountering one another, creating something new. So not just like Spanish influenced dances, not just the kundiman, but also kinds of practices were happening during this period. And so why dancing and singing? So I'm in this like musicology program. I'm affiliated with the music department. And while I'm not specifically like annotating and looking at sheet music, I am interested in the importance of dancing and singing, especially for young Filipino women during this period. And there's a scholar that I really look up to. She focuses on African-American women performers in the 1920s. So this was after the emancipation of African-Americans. They were no longer considered slaves, but now they were rebuilding their lives. And so a lot of women started to become dancers and started to find work outside of domestic service. So outside of care work, cleaning, cooking, you know, really showing up in the public sphere. So dancing as a chorus girl on stage was a radical act for a lot of women. So this quote really stays with me. She says, dancing and singing feel the radical hope of living otherwise. And in this way, choreography was just another kind of movement for freedom, another opportunity to escape service, another elaboration of the general strike. So in many ways, my research is really interested in like how a small figure like a chorus girl can tell us about new ideas about women, reasserting new ideas of race, gender, sexuality on these public stages. And people are doing that today too, right? Like a lot of figures like that were Atong de la Rama, Cathy de la Cruz, Isabel Rosario Cooper, and scholarship has been written about them. And so I wanted to bring in Maggie Calloway, someone who was both Filipina and African-American, into this history. And for more context, so the Philippines chapter is part of my larger dissertation project. So I'm leaving this Friday, and then I'm moving back to the United States, and will be completing my last year of doctoral studies. So I'm completing my third chapter, and then I have one more chapter. So I'm very interested in the chorus girl kind of formation, like I was talking about earlier, but in different sites and in different contexts and time periods. So the first chapter is, like, as I was saying, Maggie Calloway and vaudeville chorus girls in Manila and Singapore from the 1920s to 1940s. The second chapter is on Marpesa Dawn, another Filipino Black American actress, and her collaborations with Afro-French artists in Paris, the 1950s, 1970s. The third chapter then goes to the United States. So I look at the Satin Sisters, which was Jessica Hagedorn, pretty well-known Filipino-American writer, and her collaborations with Delaney Davis and Tazaki Shange in San Francisco and in New York. And the last chapter is, probably know, RuPaul and Zaldi. And, you know, they are drag performers. They're performing a type of femininity. And I'm interested in how that Filipino and Black artists are also creating these like queer Afro-Filipina aesthetics from the 1980s to the present. So this is the book project that I'm working on, and hope to we'll complete. Okay, so I'll just dive in to a little bit more of what I was doing here. So Maggie Calloway, so I'll give you more specific context here. So Maggie Calloway and migratory African-American performers in colonial Manila. So my research the past 9 months has been devoted to studying the legacy of Maggie Calloway, the acclaimed star of the aggregation. Born in 1910 in Manila, this extraordinary Filipina and Black American vaudeville performer enchanted audiences in Manila and Singapore with her unique talents. From the 1920s to 1940s, she astounded both as a soloist and a chorus formation alongside other vaudeville Filipino stars. So in my work, I explore Calloway's dance styles, her vocal experiments, and fashion choices, shedding light on how she redefined concepts of Filipina and Black Amerasian femininities. So my affiliate, again, Dr. Arwen Tan, helped me to think through how dancers and performers like Calloway interacted, contradicted, strategized, and negotiated with dominant cultures and the technologies of the time. So a lot of women were performing in photo plays, which were silent films. They were performing in live performance through the vaudeville shows. And they also started to sing on the radio. So there are all these different kinds of technologies that these women were adapting and using. And as a result, the performances emphasized the creation of a vibrant transcultural music and musical practices that resulted from these cross-racial encounters. So through this analysis, we gain a fresh perspective on the dynamic relationship between US and European empires and performance culture in Asia and the Pacific. So what is interesting too about Maggie Calloway was that she was a daughter of a former African-American Buffalo soldier who was Sergeant John W. Calloway, who defected from the American military and married a Filipino woman by the name of Mamerta de la Rosa. So during the 1910s, 1920s, her family lived in Quiapo in a center of vibrant social, cultural change during the American colonial period. And interestingly, her father was also a fan of the arts, and he often wrote to Black intellectuals like W.E.B. Du Bois about the importance of African-American progress and racial progress through music, theater, and dance. So Calloway similarly followed her father's affinity for the arts. However, rather than learn opera or other kinds of, quote, high art European forms of art, Calloway danced African-American vernacular dances like the Black Bottom and Charleston. And I'll get more into that later. She gained her stardom as a chorus girl with the Savoy Nifties, the Varieties Company, and she was often praised for her singing and dancing. So in one review in a newspaper, they wrote, quote, Maggie's dancing is above criticism, and the work of the chorus deserves the highest commendation. The number is a welcome innovation on the vaudeville routine. So interestingly too, she was also racialized in varied ways across her reception in the newspapers. So from Filipina to Spanish to African-American too. So also demonstrating that these racial categories, as we know today, were in flux and in changing in colonial Manila. Another performer that I also want to highlight that is interesting, that was a contemporary of Calloway, is Thomas Clifford Dunson, who went by the stage name Buster Dunson or La Busta, which it's Josephine Baker, which was another African-American performer, mainly in the 1920s in Paris, France. She went by La Baker, so he took on La Busta. But he was a dancer, costume designer, and also a female impersonator. So yeah, this is Buster Dunson. And he began a gender illusionist career in California in the early 1920s. Later on, he started traveling with a lot of African-American jazz bands and went to places like New Zealand and Hawaii, Japan, like all across the Pacific. And he ended up staying in the Philippines, where he would do his solo dancing act. And he would, at the end of his solo dancing act as a woman, who would perform as a woman, he would take off his wig to show that he was a man. So kind of like a gender reveal at the end of his performance, which is, this is kind of new and novel for a 1920s performance in Manila, in a place like Manila, right, at this time period. So as I'm studying his career as well, Dunton's appearance as an African-American gender illusionist, a dress designer, and a choreographer in these performance circuits illuminate otherwise masculinities and intimacies that I'm going to further explore in the larger chapter. So one thing I also want to talk about is like the attitudes towards African-American performers in the Philippines and Southeast Asia were contradictory. So while many faced racial stereotypes and were typecast in their performances, they also were confronting them. So according to scholar Fritz Schenker, he writes, quote, African-American musicians in colonial Asia were simultaneously fixing and unsettling social classifications of race, both maintaining and challenging the sense of racial order in their relations to white colonials and various Asian populations, end quote. So dance styles like the Charleston and the Black Bottom became racialized and were acquainted with African-American popular dance forms. But like scholars like Peter Kepi have written about how a lot of elitist, especially like Spanish Tagalog reviewers or critics or politicians really looked down on these kinds of dances. And I'll show, oops. So this is an example of a Black Bottom dance, or a Charleston dance. And you can see it's Josephine Baker, it's not Maggie Calloway, but you can see that it's a very exaggerated dance. She's wearing, she's showing a lot of skin, and there's a lot of gesture. So there's a lot of, it's gesturing to elicit a kind of like sensual response. So a lot of people really looked down on these kinds of like very exuberant performances. And so it's interesting to me, again, how Calloway was a performer that was like taking on and introducing this dance style to Filipino women, and yeah, reworking through these ideas of like the virginal trope of the Filipino woman, the pious, devoted trope, and bringing in this kind of new dance style to the Philippine vaudeville scene. Okay. So I will just end, or okay, so this is the second. So the part I was talking about was like in the 1920s, 1930s. And then recently I went to BGC to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Manila. They had a Sounds of Blackness gallery showing. It's up until June 17th. And I thought it was interesting that how they marketed it was like, this is the first showing of all African Black diasporic artists in this Philippine gallery. And so I saw the exhibit, and there's music as part of it. So as you're going through, you're seeing a lot of like different kinds of art, mostly paintings, some sculptures. There's this one installation video. You're also hearing a lot of music. So you're hearing like hip hop from Mariah Carey to like Afro-Cuban jazz. And so I was really struck by this particular installment, and it's by this Black British filmmaker, artist, dancer, Ifeoma Esi, and this is called Bodies in Descent, and it derives from another African-American theater dance scholar from the States, Daphne Brooks. And again, it's another book that talks about the possibilities of choreography and performance, especially of women, to rework these ideas of service labor, of women, especially Black women, as property, as custodians, and really how do we use choreography, our movement, to move beyond the conditions of enclosure that sometimes we are relegated to as women. So I thought this was an interesting video, and I just want to play a clip for you all. Okay. There's another clip. Okay, so I watched this video like 3 times. It's 5 minutes. These are just clips. And the artist, Essie, again, her work deals with Black feminist bodies, archives, and cartographies from the Black Atlantic and diaspora. And the video, which is now located in Manila, registers its own kind of meaning of Black femininity, Black feminism, and the soundscapes of Manila here that I've been thinking about for the past 9 months. So it's kind of interesting that this contemporary performance was in this particular space, and I'm thinking through with it. And how I'm reading the video too are the possibilities, again, of these choreographies and these choral formations, and that we demand and attend to the kinds of possibilities between Filipinos and Black Americans, as well as the conflicts and the dissensus between the 2 communities. So what I really hope with my work, thinking about vaudeville to now, is to inspire these new movements of thinking about these relationalities, thinking about these new archives, these new questions, and most importantly, thinking about the new and new dance possibilities for both of our communities across the diaspora. So, so in terms of the what I'm doing next, the future directions of the research is that I'm going to Singapore to further trace the itinerary of Maggie Calloway in Singapore. She did also perform there and choreographed. She choreographed these Philippine folk dances like the Pareñosa, as well as the rumba, Latin American rumba. And again, she was also kind of seen as the Josephine Baker of Singapore at the time. So I'm interested, I will want to dive into that. So, so yesterday I saw some friends, and we did like a ceremony where we lighted some paper flowers. These are, so again, this is like the fire dancer and the Reiki healers that I've met here, hippies. And so one of they said to me yesterday is, they told me a quote from Rumi, who is like this Iranian poet, and they just said, dance until you shatter yourself. Like while we were like lighting up this bonfire. And so again, I really want to thank the interlocutors here that have made this journey possible. And again, I am a performance studies scholar. I'm interested in dance and theater, music. So one of the takeaways of this experience here is to dance, and also to continue to learn and grow and evolve and shatter myself in a way where I am not trying to control everything, because I think also with the research process, and if there are graduate students here, we can also talk about that, is to really open myself up to the surprise of everything, as well as the precision of everything. Like everything in your life happens as it should, and you don't need to really control or devise it, because I think it's already, everybody has maybe a religion or spiritual figure, but I hope the work and these kinds of practices will inspire everybody to the surprise of everything and to the beauty of everything as well. So thank you all, and thank you for listening, and I hope you all enjoy the food. Yeah.
I think we will have some time for few questions.
Yeah.
Yes, but before that, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our national artist, Professor Ramon Santos. President so kind to come, and he was here early. I chanced upon him yesterday and said Jewel will be presenting her end of grant report, and I asked if he would come. And thank you, sir, for gracing this report. And
Thank you.
so maybe you would like to have. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
In this phenomenon of Philippine artists,
Yeah.
Trying to just a particular field.
Oh, no. No. So,
Because,
yeah.
for example, there's Elizabeth Ramsey.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if he belongs to this set.
Yes. Yes, yes, sir. Thank you so much. In the chapter, I actually mentioned her in the conclusion, and thinking about who's the legacies after Maggie, and also the humor that Elizabeth Ramsey is known for being a comedian, and very well-known comedian. And I also will integrate her into this project. And I mentioned a bit before, but the larger dissertation and book project I'm working on is looking at different places, not just Philippines, but also France, and then also the United States. So I'm trying to connect different kinds of all transnational geographies together in the work as well. But this one, what I'm doing in the Philippines is mostly Philippines, Singapore, like this inter-Asian circuit.
Like during the time, people
Right.
But they were not.
Oh, I think, yes, I think there's more contemporary artists like her. I maybe some people know her, like R&B, mostly R&B artists, especially within the diaspora, a lot of multiracial Black, yes. Maybe here, maybe some people know more. Yeah, happy to. Thank you. Oh, hi, Eva.
I'm very particularly interested in the chapter 4. So
Oh.
what your study is more
Yeah.
developed, we could probably do another talk about
Yes.
it. And now, I'm a fan of the show, the RuPaul's Drag Race, and so basically the coverage is the Afro-Filipino experience, right?
Mm.
I immediately looked for other Filipino Americans who were part of this show. I can only
Yes.
name 3
Mhm.
drag queens. So
Right.
you're particularly, as I understand right now, you're particularly interested in Zaldi.
Zaldi, who is the designer of RuPaul's looks. So it's a,
designer.
yeah, so his collaborator. And then also Drag Race Philippines too. I'm interested to have, and I also went to drag shows here and like Obar. It's also there are a lot of tributes to RuPaul today too. So that I also want to bring in the live performances today and these tributes to RuPaul and the spin-offs of Drag Race Philippines, etc.
And also, I don't know if you know that Ronnie
Yes.
had her new franchise, another drag show that's kind of new here.
Right. Yes. Drag them. Is that-
Yeah, they're drag.
Yeah.
So chapter 4 we'll talk about here.
Yes. And also collaboration, gender, and also like intimacy between the different collaborators as well, because at least with RuPaul, because Zaldi is the fashion designer, like every episode, RuPaul comes in with a new look, and so I'm interested in how like an intimate, like a collaboration or some sense of affinity can be shown through fabric or through not just like face-to-face or bodily contact, but through like again, like that's why I'm interested in crafts, these other kinds of quieter intimacies that you won't see, like, you know, on the activist floor, but like maybe in like yeah, through dress, through shared aesthetic, like thinking about color design as a way to think about the, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe also the glitter.
And yeah,
Yes.
the bonga.
The bonganess.
Oh, I'm gonna use that term. And I Chinese term bonga.
Sorry to have thought to that. And more questions? We can wait a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, and I also do want to share, like, also this project was very much inspired by my family. So my parents, my mom remarried when she was in the States, and she married an African-American man. And so I've always, even my family, it's been a multiracial family. And I really wanted to show kind of, this is like a little bit of a love letter to my family, this project. But also like to women too. I wanted to make sure to center narratives of women. And yeah, so I don't know if there are other graduate students here, but some, you know, you don't have to always have a personal connection, but for me, this is what keeps me, the fire in me to keep writing and thinking through this. So. Okay, hi.
May have missed this. May have missed the answer. I would like, maybe you can expound on how you plan to talk about sound, like transnational sound culture,
Yes.
or something that we have.
Right. Yes. Oh, beautiful. That's the question of this chapter, because I've been working with Doc Arwin. So yes, there are no, as to my knowledge, no live recordings of her, and there are photo plays, but there are mostly still photographs. So and also these were silent films. So again, where's the sound? But so how I'm thinking through sound through the archive too is thinking, so if there is like a particular song, looking at like the history of that song, kind of even you know, looking at the press reviews, seeing how they describe like her voice, vocal style. I mean, that's like kind of like the closest we can get to the sonic there. So that's the challenge in this chapter. In the other chapters, everybody full on sound, and that's where we get, like, you know, even Marquesa Dawn, you know, she was in films in the 1950s and recording. So that's a very sound heavy chapter, but this one I'm still struggling. And so kind of I fight a little bit with the archive in this chapter, because I'm like, but yeah, it's still in process. Right. Yes.
And then also maybe something related to the question of Sol. We can look at the recordings of her contemporary artists,
Right.
so we can have at least an idea of how female singers sounded at the time.
Yeah.
They have a certain quality that is peculiarly from that period. So maybe Maggie Calloway would have sounded more or less similar to Katie de la Cruz,
Right.
or maybe no, sorry, Atang de la Rama.
Atang de la-
Probably closer. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Questions from the audience? Yeah. One more question. Yeah. Uh,
So, are you just, Filipino, Afro?
Oh, well, yes. And how I'm theorizing Afro-Filipina is in some instances, they are multiracial, just the actress. And then other places like the Satin Sisters and the RuPaul, those are like just interracial, cross-racial. So thinking about that term flexibly rather than like, this is it, like this is what Afro-Filipina is. It's more of a portal of opening rather than like, this is what it is. It's, yeah, an exploration of that.
but what makes her study interesting is that she looks at two subjugated like race and Afro, no? And then Filipina, and then in terms of gender, we know that the dominant power is with men, so they carry the hegemony over the female. So this is really a study of resistance or contradictions.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I hope that Jewel will be able to carry on with the voices of women, not only of women, but Afro-Filipina women who were performing for a big audience, a global audience.
Right.
So, are there any more questions? None? Yes,
Just pop up.
Eva.
So I'm very interested with the racial
Yes.
relations of the Afro-Filipino women
Mhm,
back in those days, because
Mm.
they would probably be warm in the West.
mhm,
How were they
mhm.
treated by the general Manila public?
Right.
The only, yeah, maybe because it was more,
Mhm.
it was more lenient for them. Maybe they were, they had the transracial background.
Right.
Compared to Colonel Loving, who was an African American engineer.
Yes.
All the advantages that he had, what he was
Mhm.
from the military
Right.
elite,
Yeah.
and the man, if we compared it to the Afro-Filipino women, were actually
Right. Yeah, great question. And there's a good book about the Black Pacific by Vince Schweitleiter. And he looks at those contradictions, especially of men. So especially Black military men. So at once they did have this power of this military power and this mobility and rank and status in the Philippines, but also again were subjected by the white colonial officials, still faced a lot of racial discrimination, segregation. Her father actually was interesting because he interviewed a lot of Filipinos and their attitudes towards African Americans. And again, the results were pretty mixed. Like some were, against the Americans, showed racial antagonisms towards African Americans, and also others found affinity or found like, we see that you are segregated in your colonial rank of the military, and we feel that same subjection as these being with the colonial figures like coming in and treating us these kinds of ways. So yeah, I would say it's very nuanced. And for women, I would say at least for Calloway, which I mentioned, her kind of mestiza looking. And you can even see in this photo too, she was racialized in various ways in the press. Of course, it always had to do with beauty or looking in a certain kind of feminine way. So I think, yeah, there were instances. So again, like she's not a very like a pure figure. I don't think she was always trying to resist. In many ways, she had to racially pass as white or like, conform to societal ideals of beauty to perform and get acclaim. So yeah. Right. Yes. Right. Yes. So that's why her father defected from the military Philippine-American War, and then married a Filipino woman, stayed here, and didn't go back to the United States.
With that her father was part of the college
Yes,
coming here.
Yeah.
It was very.
right.
Are there more? Yes, Stephen.
I just want to confirm when you said that, Maggie Calloway choreographed,
Yes,
so I think that's kind of explains her.
Yeah.
A lot of Filipino kids wouldn't really know that,
Yeah.
especially when they're being taught during mapping.
right.
And that might be a game changer when they would know their real history. And,
Yes.
how would you?
Yeah. She also, when she was in the United States, she performed in the Moro dances too. So she also knew a lot of folkloric type dances. Even the sword dance. I'm not sure the sword dance too much the history of that, but she also performed the sword dance. So I would again, she's such a versatile figure. She was trained in the United States with jazz dancing, so she learned a lot of jazz, brought it to the Philippines. But again, she was living in Quiapo, was a starlet of the Manila scene, so I'm sure she also performed a lot of the folklore, like the kundiman. She did like a dance off with a Tanggalarama up with the kundiman and jazz. So I'm sure she was. And that's why, again, it's the interesting kind of melding of like the folkloric tradition and then the quote modernity and how she's navigating both of those styles together, which is fascinating for me.
Pereyra, Filipino dance or
I would say more traditional, yeah, or it's more seen as the quote authentic, what audiences would kind of imagine for to see this on stage, because the Cornioso too was in front of Singaporean audiences. So, and they're wearing the traditional like terno, the tapis. So I think they wanting to show Filipino-ness through this cultural dance too, indigenous dance too. Oh yeah. Right.
Like when I was young, I had a section of that. So my mother would call me Negro. Yeah, but it's by yes and yes. So as I said, the way we treat Black people here are quite different from American.
Yeah, are there any more questions?
Oh yeah.
We have to look into and see that,
Oh
doing performance, all of them we are entertainers.
yes.
So it's not that they're doing there's an economic side.
Right. I think Doc Arwin is the economics performance expert. I mainly I look at the capital flows of the time period. So because of the rising industrialization and the trade happening with Singapore and Manila, and also the growing economic capital that women were having. That's about as far as in terms of economics that I go into. But I am fascinated with how these budding, growing technologies are being traded across like Asia and the Pacific, and then like Europe, the United States. So those are interesting to me. But personally, No, I don't, yeah, I don't really look.
Maybe one question from me.
Yes.
When Maggie Calloway migrated to the United States, how did she identify herself? I mean, here in the Philippines, she was more mestiza. So she was already quite different from the usual performers.
Yeah.
But when she went to the United States, how was she as and then was she strongly stating that she was somebody, or was she representing a certain group of subjugated culture or population?
Yes. Good question. It's hard, there isn't much press about her in the States, but she did have family in Chicago and like African-American family members from Chicago, and then she moved to San Jose, that's where she passed. But I would say her sister, though, wrote a very interesting commentary about actually the differences of Black American experiences in the Philippines versus the United States. And she actually did say, yeah, I am treated differently here. Like her sister was saying this, Maggie, Elizabeth Calloway was saying that she feels the racial prejudice. And this is 1920s, 1930s. So I would think, I think she did feel more African-American, Black when she went to the States. Yeah.
Are there more questions? If there are none, I'd like to present this to Jewel, but before that, I'd like to thank the UP Center for Ethnomusicology for hosting Jewel's end of grant report on the office of Dr. Vern de la Peña and also Dr. Ramon Santos and Miss Grace over there who was Jewel's email email chat, parang gano'n. Yeah. I don't know how we call it. Parang chat, but in the email. And also the staff of the UP Center for Ethnomusicology, Sir Dino and then of course Miss Shirley from the Extension Office, who's also the graduate program secretary or coordinator, not coordinator, secretary, who helped prepare the bountiful food that we will partake later, courtesy of Jewel, and plenty of people to thank. Ben, Philip, I might forget some people. Rowan, Sol, of course, Medino, James, and the library angel, of course, whom Jewel has been saying thanks to, headed by Michelle and Dale and her constant food supplier and paper and books supplier. When I tell Jewel, please look for this book or this article, and then following day, Miss Jo will bring it to her. So, without further ado, I'd like to read this certificate, which we will present to Jewel. University of the Philippines College of Music awards the Certificate of Appreciation to Jewel Pereyra for sharing her Fulbright end of grant report held at the UP Center for Ethnomusicology Library on June 7, 2023. Signed by yours truly and Dr. Laverne C. de la Peña, Dean of the College of Music.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. Wait. This is the official photograph. And maybe you're hiding. Jewel is hiding.
One more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and on behalf of the College of Music, we would like to wish you good luck in your dissertation writing, and soon, maybe when you come back, we will already call you Dr. Jewel
Oh.
Pereyra.
Okay. Thank you to the library, ethnomusic. I wish I went here. This is like really nice. I don't know why. I was just in that nook that you put up for me. I didn't leave. I was writing. But thank you again, everybody. Yeah. Mwah. I love it. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy the food. Please get as much as you want. Bring some home. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. I'm guessing.
And oh, can we do a group photo? Is that okay? Just for my memory?
Yeah.
My group
Okay.
photo for everybody.
And let's have a group photo.
Oh, we're gonna. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yan, okay, okay. Maybe you can
Oo,
stay there.
clear
Oh,
na lang. Or
thank you, sir.
maybe here, kita yung books. So there's a, I'll turn it off.
Ah, yes. Maybe it's better.
Oo.
Yeah.
So you can see the books or something. Hindi ka na sasama.
May tripod.
Kain na daw tayo. Then you can. Dito meron pa ito. Windows.